What's up, future shredlords? Listen, I watched a whole lot of critiques of the Joe Satriani performance of some Van Halen material on Howard Stern with Sammy and the boys, Michael and John. So here's the thing. Listen, it's valid criticism, but I have a concern there because I watched some of these more in-depth critique videos, and they were like, you know, complaining about things which I guess to a certain degree are valid, but to a larger degree are not really good in terms of like a healthy mindset as far as a musician is concerned. And that's where I'm not taking issue with it. I just like to address it to a certain degree. You do not, I'll say it again, you don't copy your idols. You absorb that information, osmose it, if you will, by listening to their music and sort of watching them play and understanding the music to a certain degree. But you don't just sit there for 6 months and practice the beat it solo until you get it down perfectly and stuff like that. There's no real sort of musical advantage to doing that outside of this one particular like instance, which is obviously going to impede other things because you spent that 6 months basically focusing your mind on this one particular task, which is the totally wrong sort of mindset you need to sort of grow and be prosperous as a productive musician, creative type, not someone that just goes around playing other people's music, which I know is very in vogue right now, but it's kind of a hell. So be very careful. I stopped doing it because I was like, this isn't healthy. And it's not. You kind of go into like a purgatory. So you were warned. But my thing is like, more importantly is you got to be able to take the influence and the inspiration from your guitar heroes and convert that into usable information for yourself. We're all using these notes, right? But it's when you sort of string them together in your own way. It's when you approach music like that, that all of a sudden you feel a great sense of accomplishment and you open a lot of doors in your favor. Now, part of it comes from just training your ear. It takes a lot of practice. But a big part of chopping off like years of unnecessary sort of like ear training, if you want, just spinning your wheels, trying to figure it all out, is using some basic music theory. And I've said this in almost every lesson for like the last, however long. The thing is like, again, I don't expect you to be able to transpose an opera or an orchestra piece or something of that nature or whatever. What I am saying is like when you're moving into B and you're like, okay, it's the B minor pentatonic scale. You're like, okay, I'm in this now. Which is this? D major there, right? Which gives me the wings to be able to move around the fretboard, right? That's what's telling me where I gotta move my fingers. My ears are being like, yes, of course. And if I want to be like, I want to change it up. Sure, why not? Maybe get into the major here. So on and so forth. And that's obviously another Van Halenism, which is the ability just to mold the music to what he needed to. He didn't actually concern himself overly much with playing the, all the perfect notes or structuring his solo or anything else like that. He went in, they laid down like 5 takes or whatever it was. And there it was. One of those takes made it onto the album and it was like done. Okay, and there's another Van Halenism. If you want to take something away from the guy, instead of like learn how to play this lick verbatim or learn this technique verbatim, instead you're like, okay. It starts off with understanding the basic stuff, phrasing. emotion, conveying a message to the listener, control. I didn't go. That was not a Van Halen approach, right? He's like... Now, there's a whole lot more stuff going on there. And that's the thing, is just like you have to be able to manipulate these basic structures in such a way to sort of really sell the music, right? Of course, you're getting into the tapping thing, and here's how this kind of plays out. Yes, he essentially blazed the, you know, with the whole, he just set the world afire with that sort of one sequence, right? But the thing is when you boil it right down to, you're talking about just this hammer-on and sort of pull-off sequence, and then at some point you're like, look, I can do 3 fingers maybe I'm gonna do 4. Oh, 2 strings. Oh no, I'm in the hot for teacher situation now. Oh, I'm gonna move around? Wow. Which one's better? Just learning the hot for teacher lick? Being able to do something like that based off the hot for teacher lick. Of course he's doing this. Which is top 3 notes from G major there. You could look at it other ways, I'm sure, but I just look at the most simplest solution. In that case, it puts this spine here where I'm tapping at E minor, right? So I can move up to the next one, so that gives me... Now I may or may not be playing modally. Depends on the backing track. But that's how I know where the next note is. Oh, look, I can change it around now. Now there, again, is the idea of duality, or what we call superimposition. There's like multiple states there. If I look at this A minor pentatonic, I can also think of it as like an A major pentatonic. Oh, how'd you like that little pivot there? I don't try to play a million notes. I use the basic Van Halen ones where he's basically doing that stuff exactly like that. Of course, there's a million other guitar players that do the exact same thing, and that's just it. You're taking his inspiration and sort of rechanneling that knowledge into your own guitar wisdom to be like, when am I going to use this? Is that not like basically eruption, just with a different sequence of notes, right? Like, and how many songs have used that? But people don't actually sort of be like, hey, that's eruption. Of course, because it's just got its own sort of sequence, maybe, or maybe they're doing like a, you know, again. Whatever it is, you know, I'm just sort of like really sort of just messing around, but. That is, again, it all starts from this basic idea that he has this bend here, and then he kind of just descends in the scale, right? Now notice I'm breaking up the scale into like a sequence and whatnot. That's another little trick, of course. You don't want to, of course, just always play in the scale. because it sounds okay, you know what I mean? And sure, it's good for going fast, but of course, when you're sort of wanting to create more interest and get more mileage out of these notes, you can start to basically arrange them in sequences. Using groups of fours or whatever. And look how much more sort of mileage I get just from a couple strings. That's kind of cool, you know, so you get the idea. Notice all the extra little stuff in there, the Van Halenisms. That's how that stuff comes out of my own playing. I don't just go the really super sterile, ultra picking, you know, and stuff. There's all these rakes, the slides, the bends, even the wrong-ish notes. At first they sound wrong, and then eventually you're like, that's a great sound. Don't ask. Okay, it's like eating weird food that tastes strange, and you're like, I can't live without this crap now. Okay, exactly the same situation. Just with music, especially when you're playing it. But it starts from the idea that you're like, I have to convert this simple skeleton of notes into something that speaks musically. Then you're like, what's the theory? I'm in Mixolydian here. Oh, I'm in Aeolian now. Let's do a minor arpeggio. Where am I now? That's Aeolian. Oh, maybe we need a dominant 7 arpeggio now. Nice little transition right there. Now the duality factor, A major. Then back into the pentatonic, diatonically speaking. And I'm done, right? So that's a bit. Now listen, you might be like, well, it doesn't sound that great because there's no backing track. And listen, that's part of it. Don't just dive in with stuff with the backing track right away, because that can actually prejudice you with respect to just sort of working on this material enough to make it work without the backing track, then figure it out how to make it work with the backing track. Yes, there's always going to be these stages of tweaking, but you trying to skip them because you think you can watch a video or read an article or do anything of that nature is just silly and a waste of time. You're not going to be able to do that. Instead, you just got to put your head down and be like, get this part done. Organizing your mind to sort of understand music in the most efficient way is probably the single biggest mistake 99% of musicians actually make in the modern age, who are just doing it from like a hobby perspective. Of course, the guys that make it or that have crazy, insane chops and stuff like that, they understand this principle very well. You have to basically understand how to just switch between these systems very quickly, just like Van Halen does. He knows that there's a minor chord over top of this minor pentatonic. Of course he does. Right? He knew that that's a 4 or 5 chord progression, right? Kind of situation. Of course he knew this stuff, right? He's just gonna be, oh, there's another 4-5-1. Okay, so listen. This stuff shows up everywhere, and that's just it. He may not have knew the theory behind it, but that's basically it. Now, maybe that wasn't a 4-5-1. I might have been going 4-5-4 or something else like that. I have to sit there and figure it out. But that's the point. See, I'm going to get this sequence of... There's this weird relationship between those two chords when I just move them half steps and stuff, and then you start messing around with it, maybe with a pedal tone kind of situation. So you're like, here. No, that one. That's the next most positive one. So you start messing around with it until you actually get something usable. You're like, this is a good chord. This is a good one. And that's a good one, right? There's a... I have to switch over to the A-type. There's a C-type triad, A-type, A-type, and that's it. E-type, E-type. Oh, there's the A-type again. Once I put all the theory together, now all of a sudden I can just easily play through the exercise because I've trained my ear enough to be able to be like, that chord goes nicely to the next one, and so on and so forth. You can hear the sequence. It's like taking a Rubik's Cube and just moving it into so you get one full color, or the entire cube solved. Whichever one is necessary, or maybe you're like, I just want the outside parts to be in all the same color, and you can do that. So that's kind of a good analogy, right? And what most people ignore. Van Halen may have sat there and went, oh, there. There's that exact same principle now using the A and C type chords. And A. Oh. See what I'm talking about? It's not really that sort of exciting or sort of revelatory when you sort of start to figure out the basic pieces, and you don't even really need to be like, oh, what key's that in or whatever else. You just start to see these relationships. I could show you 100 different triangles. They're all different because they have different angles and sizes and everything else like that. I'd be like, what is this? And you'd be like, that's a triangle. And it's the same principle that I'm like, what is this? And you're like, that's a major scale. And I'm like, what is this? And you're like, that's a diminished arpeggio. And you're like, what's this? You're like, that's a first inversion major arpeggio. And I'm like, what am I doing now? You'd be like, that's ascending the steps of a major scale using triads. Major, minor, and diminished. Major for the first degree. Based around simple diatonic theory. Minor. Another minor, of course. Major for 4 and 5, 6. Diminish. And then back to the start. Notice how I switch that around to this. Because it's much easier for me to play. I don't torture myself going, okay, no, I'm like, oh, look, I'm going to move this note here over here. And you'd, oh, nice. See that? And Van Halen would have done the exact same thing. Innovate. You heard all the crazy, weird stuff he did, right? And how many times he broke the mold with amp sounds and instrumentals and techniques and stuff like that. That's what you're shooting for. That's the magic sauce right there. Not trying to sort of score some sort of empty victory by learning how to play this solo note for note, or learning how to play this song exactly as he does with all the other stuff. If you're playing the song and you're doing most of the rhythm parts like you should be doing, right? You might be doing like drop deck legs. Right, sort of situation, and then he does all those little extra moves in there. Instead of him going, you know, you might go a slight variation, but it's your own vision. You're using that template of hot drop dead legs or whatever it is, whichever song it is from whichever band it is, to essentially sort of insert your own sort of musical ideas. That's an opportunity for you to do it, right? Maybe on, like, say, You Really Got Me, you're gonna go. That's a great note to throw in there from this F sharp minor pentatonic. Right, so you got this. Okay, now if the rest of the band was actually playing the rest of the rhythm section when you did that, it would blow people's minds. And again, I'm just using the pentatonic scale. See that? That's that little pivot note again. It's by using this A as a pedal, but subverting the expectation there with that G. Again, I don't expect you to be able to know all the intricacies of music and whatnot, but you should know that there's like these types of sequences there, right? I bet you didn't know that was in there, eh? That's where those extra little pieces come up. There's this A there, there's this A there, there's the A9. Moving in nicely to this D, right? And then maybe that. And then, of course, moving to the B and then back to. Again, one of the modes, right? Which one's that? If you said Mixolydian, you was totally right. So, there it is. There's where the music theory comes in handy, because you're like, oh, look, there's where that is. That opens up a lot of doors now. There's, I'm in this A minor, pentatonic. Okay, great. Oh, jump down to Mixolydian. Awesome, I got this choice. Maybe an arpeggio. Or maybe you want to get more exotic with dominant 7 there. Major 7. Jumping back down to Mixolydian again. Substituting in. Major scale there for instead of Mixolydian mode. Oh, jumping back to now the Aeolian or the minor pentatonic. Right now, again, notice all the control and stuff like that with the bands sort of getting into those, the artificial harmonics working, getting those vibrato pieces. Those are essential right now, and it takes a lot of practice, obviously, to get that aggressive vibrato to sound just right. Control those artificials. So, I mean, it just takes a while to sort of get there and be like, okay, that's your first goal. Just get it simple with maybe a little micro bend. Move next to one. There's a little with the slide, right? So again, all ways that you can start to use his inspiration to bring it to yourself. I use this idea all the time. You've probably heard me use that a trillion times. That's Van Halen to the core. And yes, the blues are insanely important. Get very, 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 very good on it. Spend a lot of time working on that too. That's going to be some of the best stuff you can do. Then work in your more advanced techniques. Getting those intervals in there, that's total Van Halen. pentatonic. Oh, look, I'm jumping down into the melodic minor. Oh, no. Forgive me, Eddie. I shouldn't have thrown that in there, right? Like, again, if you were to play like a lick like this, to be like... Isn't that whole first part essentially eruption? You know, when you do this bend? Come on. Of course it is. That's my point. See that? How many guitar players have done that? Time beyond count, okay? So don't get blinded by the easy stuff, the low-hanging fruit. Instead, be like, there's the golden apple way, way up that tree. You ever seen the movie Ong Bak? That's what it's really like. Because you've got a million other guitar players that are circling around, basically wanting the same exact thing that you do. The thing that will get you noticed, and I'm not kidding you, is your ability to control the melody, your ability to blend various techniques together, which, of course, Van Halen is an absolute master. And understanding how to absorb his techniques and use them to your advantage. Again, the idea where you're starting off with just a simple tapping to moving to 3 notes, maybe, and then using slides, right? So you elevate the original idea, which was... whatever he does, like, I actually never actually learned eruption, if you can believe that. So, I mean, but that's neither here nor there. I understood immediately the idea of... and I was like, look, you can move down. And then moved up again. Well, what's the relationship there? What is that? That's the major scale. So now I have all those notes there, right? Well, that makes this Locrian, right? So I can move up here. Okay. Well, now I've already elevated this sort of idea of this technique to way beyond where Van Halen was using it initially. And his is still important in terms of all the dive bombs and the micro-controlling of that and the bends and the vibrato and the absolute mastery over the note selection and stuff. So don't get me wrong, it's just a start, but that's my thing. Instead of sitting there for 6 months practicing just eruption, instead practice the eruption type ideas based around some basic music theory and unlock the secrets that you'll need to create a lick just like the one he used at Eruption, but for yourself and your own audience. And then you too will ascend to the ranks of greatness. And if you can't, music will always be your friend, and it's always a quest. We'll leave it there for today. Quest for originality and your own creative voice. Use them for practice instances, use them for study in terms of training your ear and understanding things and how to blend techniques together, but avoid copying outright or spending too much time trying to learn solos or things of that nature verbatim. Do not do that. Always look for the theoretical connection so that you can start to be like, okay, got it figured out and cataloged in the upstairs computer. Get it done, boys, girls, and everybody in between. Enjoy your Sunday. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you all. We'll see you in the next one.